When I opened the door, Lucy was standing there in her engagement dress, holding a ring from her ex. She didn't speak. Neither did I. The velvet box trembled slightly in her fingers, and for a second, it felt like the past we'd both buried was clawing its way back between us. I didn't expect her. Not after what she chose. Not after the way she left without a word and slipped into Aaron's arms like I was a chapter she regretted writing. But there she was. Not with Aaron. Not smiling. Just trembling. I shouldn't be here, she whispered, voice catching. But I didn't know where else to go. I didn't move from the doorway. I didn't ask her to come in. Why are you holding that? I asked. She looked down at the ring box like she'd forgotten it was in her hands. Her lips parted, then closed again. The same way she used to hesitate when she didn't want to lie, but didn't have the strength to tell the truth either. It came in the mail, she finally said. Yesterday, from Marcus. My jaw clenched at the name. I hadn't heard it in years, but I remembered the day she chose him over me like it had just happened. I remembered the silence, the way she stopped, answering my texts, the last time I stood in front of her asking why and she said nothing. Is that why you're here? I asked. To tell me you're second-guessing everything the night before your engagement party? She stepped forward. No, yes, I don't know. She was wearing white, but her eyes were swollen. No makeup, no confidence, just regret swimming, beneath every blink. You said you loved him, I muttered. You said Aaron made you feel safe. He does, she said quietly. But you made me feel alive. I stared at her for a long time. The hallway felt too quiet, the world outside too far away. She held out the box. I don't want it, but I also can't bring myself to throw it away. I didn't take it. I couldn't. Instead, I asked, do you still love him? Her eyes lifted. I don't know who I love anymore, but the last person I wanted to see before I made a mistake was you. My name is Christian, and for 7 years, Lucy was everything. We met in the most unremarkable way. College cafeteria, 2 trays, 1 awkward apology as she bumped into me and spilled orange juice on her white blouse. I offered my napkin. She gave a quick smile, and for some reason, I never forgot that smile. It wasn't dazzling, it wasn't staged, it was real. From then on, I kept finding excuses to cross her path. I helped her with notes she didn't ask for, offered rides she never requested, waited outside her classes just to say hi and hear whatever nonsense she'd say about her day. She wasn't the loudest girl in the room, but she had this way of noticing everything, remembering things no one else did, like how I hated onions or how I always listened to the same playlist when I studied. She never said much about it, but I caught her small gestures. She would pick the onions out of the cafeteria sandwiches before handing them to me, or switch her music to match mine when we sat near each other. It was subtle, but it was enough to keep me hooked. For a long time, we weren't dating. Not officially. We existed in that vague space where everything felt like more than friendship, but wasn't quite labeled. We had moments, quiet late-night calls, shared playlists. Inside, jokes. The kind of tension that hums under the surface, like a spark always waiting to catch fire. I was content in that space. I was scared to push too hard, afraid if I asked for more, I'd lose what little I had. So I settled for less. Until he showed up. Marcus. He was the opposite of me, confident, direct, flashy in a way that made people look. He didn't hesitate. He asked Lucy out within 2 weeks of meeting her, and she said yes, just like that. I remember that night too clearly. I sat outside her dorm with a coffee in hand, waiting to surprise her. I saw her step out in a black dress, laughing as Marcus opened his car door for her. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and looked away. I threw the coffee in the nearest trash can and left. We didn't speak for weeks. When we finally did, she told me, "You never asked me to be yours, Christian. You gave me every piece of you without asking for a thing in return. I didn't know what we were. I wanted to scream that she was everything to me. But what came out was quieter. "So that's it?" She didn't answer. And that was the first time I learned how silence can feel like a punch to the chest. For the next 2 years, she was with Marcus. They traveled, posted pictures, looked perfect. But then one day, the posts stopped, and I got a call. It was Lucy. She asked if I could help her move her things out of the apartment. I shouldn't have said yes, but I did. When I showed up, she looked different, tired, defeated. Her eyes didn't shine the way they used to. "I'm done with him," she said without being asked. "He cheated." I didn't ask for details. I just carried the boxes. That night, as we sat in her half-empty apartment, she turned to me and said, "You were always the one who stayed, Christian, even when I pushed you away." I didn't know what to say, so I just stayed. We spent the next few months in that strange limbo again, closer than friends, still not lovers. We watched movies together, cooked dinner in silence, laughed over old memories. It felt like a second chance. Then came Aaron. He was quieter than Marcus, more stable. And this time, Lucy didn't hesitate. She started dating him 6 months after Marcus. She told me about it casually, over coffee one afternoon. "I'm seeing someone," she said, not meeting my eyes. I smiled through the ache. "He a good guy?" She nodded. "Yeah, he's safe." That word, safe, hung in the air. I wanted to ask her if she was choosing safety over love, if maybe she'd gotten too tired of pain to chase what really mattered. But I didn't. I just nodded. Then, "I'm happy for you." After that, we stopped talking, slowly, like ice forming over a once warm lake. She stopped texting. I stopped reaching out. She moved in with Aaron. I focused on work. Claire entered the picture not long after. She was easy to be around, funny, smart. She saw through me fast, told me once, "You talk a lot, but you don't say much when it matters." That's a lonely way to live, Christian. She wasn't wrong. Still, I tried. I tried to feel something real with Claire, and I think I did. But it never drowned the ghost of Lucy. So when the engagement invitation came, I almost didn't go. Claire told me I shouldn't. She made her choice, she reminded me. But I wasn't going for closure. I went because of what I found in my mailbox. A ring. In a box. With Marcus's name behind it, engraved with the words, "Still us." And somehow, without trying, Lucy had pulled me right back into her storm. The box sat on my table for 2 days. I didn't touch it after I saw the engraving. I couldn't. It was small, but it felt heavier than anything I'd carried in years. Maybe because it wasn't just a ring. It was everything Lucy had never said to me, suddenly delivered by a man she once chose over me. Marcus. I stared at it over breakfast. During work calls, even when Claire came over and sat on the couch, her eyes flicking toward it but saying nothing. She was good at sensing when I was caught in the past. "Is that what I think it is?" she finally asked. I didn't answer. "You opened it?" I nodded. Claire looked down, exhaled, and said softly, "And now you're going to her engagement party." "I need to give it back." She gave a bitter smile. "Is that what this is? Returning something that isn't yours anymore?" She wasn't wrong. But she wasn't right either. I wasn't going there to win Lucy back. I wasn't even sure what I expected. Maybe a thank you, maybe a goodbye. Maybe just a reason to stop imagining what her voice sounded like when she said someone else's name in the dark. The venue was a small, tastefully decorated hall near the city center. I showed up just as the lights dimmed and guests started filtering in. I kept my distance, no intention of stealing a spotlight, but the moment Lucy saw me across the room, holding that velvet box in my hand, her face changed. Not with surprise. Not with guilt. With something worse. Recognition. She knew why I was there. She found me in the hallway during a lull in the music, alone. No Aaron, no Claire, just her and me. "You opened it," she said. "You didn't ask me not to." "I did. You didn't listen. Do you want it back?" I held the box between us. She didn't reach for it. Her eyes were glassy, and I could tell she hadn't slept. Maybe not in days. He sent it out of nowhere, she whispered. I didn't ask him to. But you didn't send it back either. I didn't know what to do. That's becoming a pattern with you, Lucy. She looked away. He said he still loved me. Said I was making a mistake marrying Aaron. My stomach twisted. And do you believe him? I don't know what I believe. There it was. The truth. The crack. The hesitation that never showed on her Instagram posts, or engagement photos, or the way she smiled at Aaron in public. I swallowed hard. Does Aaron know? No. I wanted to laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was always like this with Lucy, torn in two directions and choosing to stand in the middle, hoping one of us would drag her to safety. You're marrying someone tomorrow and still holding on to someone else's ring. Her voice dropped. I was never holding onto the ring, Christian. I was holding on to you. The words hit harder than I expected. I should have walked away. I should have told her she didn't get to say that. Not now. Not after cutting me out. But instead, I whispered, then why didn't you choose me? I was scared. Of me? Of how much I felt. She was trembling now, and I hated how much I still wanted to pull her close. I handed her the box. Then take this, and make your choice. You can't have both. Her hands didn't move. Stepped back. Keep it, or throw it away. But if you show up tomorrow wearing his ring and still thinking about me, don't expect me to be sitting in the crowd smiling for you. Before she could reply, the hallway door opened. Aaron. He smiled at me, oblivious. Hey, man. Glad you could come. Lucy froze. I forced a smile. Of course. Wouldn't miss it. Aaron slipped his arm around her waist and her body stiffened ever so slightly. Enough that I noticed. Ready to go back in? He asked her. She nodded. But her eyes didn't leave mine. Not even when he kissed her cheek and led her toward the main room. And as she disappeared into the glow of fairy lights and applause, the velvet box remained in her hand, tucked between her fingers like a question she wasn't ready to answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lucy's face in that hallway, pale, uncertain, still holding the ring she should have thrown away. I kept hearing her voice, trembling under the weight of something she refused to name. I was never holding onto the ring. I was holding on to you. She had no right to say that. Not now. Not after all this time. Not after choosing Aaron and calling him safe. Safe. That word echoed like a slur in my mind now. Because if I was fire, Aaron was water. If I made her feel everything, he helped her feel nothing. Maybe that's what she wanted. Maybe it was easier to live numb than to risk being shattered again. But what did that make me? I stared at my ceiling for hours, trying to convince myself that I had imagined it all. That Lucy wasn't looking at me with regret. That her voice wasn't breaking when she talked about Marcus. That the way she held the ring wasn't full of hesitation. But the truth was clear. She didn't know what she wanted. And I was exhausted from being someone else's uncertainty. Claire called once just after midnight. I didn't pick up. She didn't leave a message. She always knew when to stop pushing. And yet, I wished she had pushed. I wished someone would barge into my apartment, grab me by the shoulders and tell me what to feel, because I didn't know anymore. I was angry, but not just at Lucy. I was angry at myself for still wanting her, for still hoping that somehow I'd meant more to her than all the ones she chased after when she ran from me. I hated that even now, with her engaged to someone else, I still remembered the sound of her laugh at 2 a.m. I still remembered the way she used to rest her head on my chest like the world outside didn't exist when we were like that. I hated that I remembered. And more than that, I hated that maybe she remembered too. Around 3 a.m., I got up and made coffee I didn't need. I stood by the kitchen window, staring out at nothing. The city lights blinked faintly in the distance, quiet and indifferent. I kept picturing the morning after the wedding. Lucy waking up next to Aaron, wearing his ring, smiling for photos she didn't feel like taking. Would she think of me when she slid that ring on her finger? Would she think of Marcus, too? How many ghosts did she plan to carry into her marriage? And what if she called it off? What if she showed up on my doorstep again, eyes red, lips trembling, saying she couldn't go through with it? Would I forgive her? Would I be able to look at her without wondering if she'd do it again someday? Or worse, what if she never came at all? What if that hallway conversation was the last time we'd ever speak? I didn't realize how tight I was gripping the coffee mug until it slipped and shattered across the tile floor. Pieces flew everywhere. A quiet explosion in an otherwise still apartment. Just like us, I thought. 1,000 small pieces that used to be something whole. And now? Now I was here, awake, alone, waiting on a woman I wasn't even sure I wanted anymore. My phone buzzed. One message, from Claire. Can't sleep either. Something's bothering you, I can feel it. I'm here if you need me. Simple, soft, real. She didn't ask questions, didn't demand explanations. She offered presence. That's who she always was. But I didn't know what to say. Because how do you explain to someone that your heart still aches for a person who walked away with someone else? That your mind keeps replaying conversations you never even had? That even now, with a future in reach, you're still haunted by the past? I didn't reply. I just stared at the message, wondering how much longer I could keep pretending I was okay. Morning came slowly. The kind of morning where the sky doesn't quite know if it wants to be bright or gray. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the velvet box Lucy had returned to me last year. Not Marcus's, mine. The one I had bought for her 2 years ago. The one I never got the chance to give. I had forgotten I still had it. But here it was, unopened, untouched, like a promise I never had the courage to make. It hit me then. Maybe Lucy wasn't the only one who had been afraid. Maybe I'd always been waiting, hoping she'd choose me without me having to ask. Maybe I had never actually fought for her. Just stood still and wished, and maybe that was the cruelest kind of love, the kind that waits in silence, hoping to be seen. The wedding was today. I hadn't planned on going. I told myself last night that I wouldn't show up, wouldn't interfere, wouldn't stand in the back like some ghost from Lucy's past. She made her choice. She was marrying Aaron. That should have been enough. But around noon, a letter slid under my door. Not a text. Not a call. A letter, handwritten on soft paper I recognized immediately. Lucy's handwriting hadn't changed in years. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for a while, heart thudding like it already knew the weight of what was inside. Eventually, I read it. Christian, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to answer this. But I needed to say it, just once, without interruptions, without fear of what comes next. I love you. I always did. I just didn't know how to live with love that scared me. With you, I felt everything. And maybe that's why I ran. Because Aaron never made me feel that way. He was easy, safe, predictable. But love, real love, was never supposed to be predictable. I told myself that marrying him was the mature choice, the responsible one. But this morning, I looked at my dress, at the ring, at the table full of names, and all I wanted was to hear your voice. I'm not going through with it. If you don't come, I'll understand. I'll disappear for good. But if there's any part of you that still believes in us, I'll be at the park where we used to meet. 3 p.m. If you don't come by then, I'll know. Eli read it twice. Then a third time. I couldn't breathe. She wasn't marrying him. She was calling it off. Everything she'd built, the plans, the ceremony, the guests, she was walking away from it all for a maybe. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt something like hope. But all I felt was pressure. What was I supposed to do with this? I picked up my phone. My fingers hovered over Claire's name. I owed her the truth. But I didn't know how to say it. That the woman who'd destroyed me was now asking me to help her rebuild what she shattered. I didn't call. I grabbed my coat and rushed out. When I got to the park, she was already there. Not in her wedding dress, but in a long, pale sweater and jeans, sitting on the bench where we used to talk for hours. Her hands were folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on the pond like she was trying to stay calm, trying not to hope. She saw me, stood slowly. I walked toward her, and for the first time in years, neither of us said a word. But just as I got within a few steps, another voice cut through the stillness. I thought I might find you here. Aaron. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't angry. He looked broken. And I hadn't seen that coming. I got a call from your mother, he said to Lucy. She said you left the ceremony. She thought maybe you ran away. Lucy swallowed hard. I left because I couldn't lie anymore. Aaron's eyes shifted to me, then back to her. So that's it? You leave me at the altar for him. Lucy stepped forward. No, I left because marrying you would have been lying to myself. Christian just happens to be here. He didn't ask for this. But you wrote him a letter, she nodded, because I needed him to know the truth. Aaron looked at me, and for a moment, I saw in his face what I'd felt years ago when Lucy chose Marcus. That hollow, disoriented ache of not being enough. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just said, I would have given you everything. And then he left. Just like that. Lucy turned to me, tears finally spilling. I never meant to hurt him. But you did, I said softly. Just like you hurt me. She nodded, voice breaking. I'm trying to stop running. I'm trying to choose something real. And what if I can't trust you anymore? She didn't argue. She didn't promise anything. She just whispered, then I'll understand. And somehow, that honesty hurt more than all the lies. We didn't speak for nearly 5 minutes. The park was quiet, save for the light wind brushing through the trees and the gentle ripple of water across the pond. Lucy stood in front of me, eyes red but steady, her hands wringing the sleeve of her sweater like she was trying to squeeze the guilt out of her skin. She had walked away from her wedding. For me, or maybe for herself. I couldn't tell. And that was the problem. I didn't know where I fit into her story anymore. Was I the ending? Or just a pause before another mistake? I know what you're thinking, she finally said. Do you? I asked quietly. She nodded. You're wondering if this is just another one of my half-decisions. Another one of my emotional whirlwinds that leaves everyone wrecked in the end. You're wondering if I'm here because I truly want you, or because I'm too afraid of being alone. And are you? Her voice cracked. I don't know. There it was again. Uncertainty. The same one that hovered between us like fog, clouding every almost and nearly. I stepped back, running, a hand through my hair. I've spent so long trying to let go of you, Lucy, and just when I finally stopped checking your name on my phone, just when I stopped waking up with your face in my head, you show up with a letter and a broken engagement. I know. You don't get to know. My voice rose for the first time. You don't get to come here with tears and a sweater, instead of a wedding dress, and expect me to just forget what it took me years to rebuild. Lucy flinched. She didn't speak. You made a choice back then. You walked away without asking me how I felt. You posted pictures with Aaron. You let the world believe you were in love while I sat at home with a ring I never gave you. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did, she nodded. And I've hated myself for it every day. Then why now? I asked. Why this morning? After everything's already set? After guests were seated and vows were prepared? Why? Is today the day you finally decided to be honest? Because I couldn't go through with it, she whispered. Because last night, when I stood in front of that mirror wearing my gown, all I could think about was how I wished it were you, standing beside me. Not Aaron, not anyone else. Just you. She stepped closer. I didn't move. I know I don't deserve another chance. I don't even deserve your words. But I'm not here to beg. I'm here to tell you that I made a mistake, that I loved you. Then, and I never stopped. And if all you want is for me to walk away, I will. But I had to try, just once. I had to try. Her voice trembled, but her gaze didn't waver. I remember the day you brought soup to my apartment when I was sick, she said. You didn't even come inside. You left it at the door, texted me, it's hot, don't let it get cold, and went home. That's the kind of love you gave. Quiet, thoughtful, never demanding. I didn't understand it then. I was too drawn to the fireworks. But now, all I want is something quiet, something real, something that doesn't need to explode to be meaningful. I looked at her for a long time. My heart wanted to believe her. My mind was fighting to protect me from that belief. You want something real? I asked. Then answer this. Why do I only matter when everything else falls apart? Lucy blinked. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. I waited. Because, she finally whispered, you're the only thing that's ever stayed the same. That hit harder than I expected. Because it was true. No matter how many times she left, I stayed. I waited. I picked up the broken pieces of what she left behind and tried to make something out of it. I was her constant, and I didn't know if that made me loyal or a fool. I don't want to be the backup plan, I said. I don't want to be the soft landing after every crash. You're not. Then prove it. Her brows pulled together. How? Tell me you'd love me even if Aaron still wanted you. Even if Marcus came back with a new ring. Even if the entire world begged you to choose someone else, would you still pick me? She didn't hesitate. Yes. Would you still pick me if I said I wasn't ready to forgive you yet? Yes. Would you still pick me if I said I can't? Promise this will work? Yes. I closed my eyes. The truth was, I didn't know if I had it in me to go through that kind of heartbreak again. Loving Lucy had never been easy. It had been a battlefield of almosts and regrets. But standing there, listening to her voice, tremble as she tried to put her heart back in my hands, I realized something. The pain hadn't come from loving her. It came from loving her alone. If she was really ready to meet me halfway, then maybe, just maybe, we still had a shot. I looked up, finally meeting her eyes. If I do this, I said, I need to know you won't disappear again. She stepped forward, placing her hand on my chest. I won't. I took a slow breath. Then you're going to have to prove it every single day, not with words, with everything you do. I will. I won't make it easy. I don't want easy. I want you. And there it was, the truth, no longer wrapped in fear or excuses, just raw and terrifying and real. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the velvet box I hadn't opened in years. The ring I once bought for her, the one she never saw. Her breath caught when I opened it. You kept it, she whispered. I couldn't throw it away. She didn't ask questions, didn't push. She just took my hand, her fingers tightening as if to say, I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. 3 weeks passed. The world moved on, but whispers didn't. Lucy's canceled wedding became the kind of scandal people passed around over wine and text messages like an unresolved rumor. Photos of her dress were still floating on her stylist's page. Aaron disappeared from social media entirely, but Lucy didn't flinch. Not once. She moved into a small place on her own. Didn't rush back to me. Didn't try to reclaim what we lost overnight. Instead, she did something rare. She sat in the wreckage and owned it. Every night she called. Not to win me over, but to tell the truth. The kind she never said before. The fears, the mistakes. The way she'd begged Marcus to propose after their third fight, not because she loved him, but because she wanted certainty. And I listened. I didn't forgive everything at once. But with each word she spoke, I felt something loosen. Then came the moment that changed everything. I was at work when Claire showed up. Not angry, not crying, just calm. Quiet. The kind of calm that made everything inside me tense. "I came to say thank you," she said. "For what?" I asked, surprised. "For not pretending. For not stringing me along when you knew your heart was still stuck on someone else. Claire," she held up her hand, "I don't hate you, Christian. I couldn't. But I hope one day someone chooses me the way you kept choosing her." And with that, she left. No bitterness. No scene. Just dignity. It stung more than any slap could have. Lucy and I saw each other that night. No dinner, no movie, just silence. Sitting on opposite ends of the sofa, knees nearly touching, but hearts still unsure. "I saw Claire," I said. Lucy nodded. "She deserves better than what I ruined." "You didn't ruin anything. I was the one who tried to build something on top of something unfinished." She looked at me. "And now?" I didn't answer with words. I reached into my jacket, the velvet box. I placed it between us. "I'm not proposing," I said. "Not yet, but I am choosing you. Not out of loneliness. Not because you came back, but because despite everything, despite everyone, it's still you." Tears slipped down her cheeks silently. She reached for the box, but didn't open it. Instead, she reached for my hand. "I'll spend every day proving I'm worth the second chance you gave me, but life wasn't done testing us." 2 weeks later, I got a call from an old business contact. One I hadn't spoken to since my company was in its early stages. He was laughing when he picked up. "Christian, you've made enemies without even trying. You'll love this. Aaron's trying to tank your name behind closed doors. Rumors, bad press, even had someone dig into your tax records. It's amateur hour but persistent." I shouldn't have been surprised. But I was angry. Not because he tried, but because he didn't even do it smartly. Lucy found out through a former bridesmaid who still held a grudge. "He's trying to destroy you," she said that night, pacing my living room. "He can't get to me, so he's coming for you." "He's hurting," I said. "That doesn't give him the right." "No," I agreed. "But it gives me a reason to end this. For good." That week, I launched a quiet counterstrike. Through a chain of anonymous investors, I acquired majority shares in Aaron's marketing agency, the one he'd bragged about for years. Lucy helped me trace his financial vulnerabilities. Turns out all his big contracts were tied to one unstable investor who was already looking to cash out. When the final contract shifted into my hands, I walked into Aaron's boardroom. He didn't know I was coming, didn't recognize the documents I now owned until he did. His face turned pale. "You," he said, almost choking. "This was you?" I smiled calmly. "I told you I wasn't at the engagement party to ruin anything, but you kept pushing. You can't do this." "I already did." I tossed the papers on the table. "Your board has already voted. You're out, effective immediately." He lunged forward. "Is this about Lucy? You think taking my company will win her?" I leaned in, eyes level with his. "This isn't about Lucy. This is about respect. You came after my name. I came after your legacy." He didn't speak, just stood there, breathing hard. "You never lost her because of me," I added. "You lost her the second you made her feel like she was settling. She doesn't need rescuing. But you..." I gestured to the collapsing papers in his hand. "You definitely need saving now." I left him there, jaw clenched, fists trembling. Closure. That was the word. Not revenge, not triumph, just closure. That night, Lucy and I sat on the rooftop of her building. No drama, no confessions, just peace. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "I know," I replied. "But I wanted to protect what we're rebuilding." He crossed a line. She rested her head on my shoulder. "You scare me sometimes," she whispered. "Why?" "Because you don't raise your voice. You don't slam doors. You wait, you watch. And when you act, it's final." "I've had enough of half measures," I said. I want a life that's whole, or not at all. She nodded slowly. So do I. As the wind danced between us, she reached into her pocket and pulled out the velvet box I'd given her again. She opened it, stared for a moment, then closed it gently, and looked at me. Not today, she said. I wasn't asking. But someday, she added. I smiled. Someday. And for the first time since she walked back into my life, I felt no ache, no question, no wound, just a quiet knowing. We had been through the fire, and we didn't come out clean, but we came out together.